Hello everyone, peace be upon you. Before we begin, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and stay with me until the end of the story. Also, leave a comment telling me which city and country you're watching from. I'd love to see how far my story has reached. For those of you who have already subscribed, I sincerely wish you good health, ease in all your affairs, abundant blessings, and may all your hopes and dreams come true. Amen. Now, let's begin the story. The Arizona sun hit like a warning. Heat rolled off the red sand around Fort Clearwater, and the air smelled like dust, gun oil, and old brass. Sarah Whitfield stepped out of the Humvee with her rifle case in one hand and a small gear bag in the other. No fanfare. No chatter. Just the steady rhythm of boots on gravel and the long flat line of the shooting range stretching into the glare. She took a breath and let it out slow. Work first, talk later. Marines were already on the line. Lucas McAdams stood with a clipboard, cap low, eyes cutting across the layout. He saw her and gave the kind of nod that said he'd seen 100 operators come and go. Ethan Ramirez was nearby, too quick with a grin, too loud with the guys clustered around him. A few glanced at Sarah's seal patch, then at her face, then at her rifle case. The looks were familiar: curiosity, doubt, and the little smirk men wear when they think they already know how the day will go. Morning, Lucas said. Flat. Professional. Range brief at 0900. Copy, Sarah said. No extra words. She walked the line once, studying wind flags, target frames, the shimmer that bent the horizon. She clocked the small things, where the gravel sank, where the sun would drop, which lanes had cleaner backstops. On another table sat stacks of magazines and a half-open ammo can. When she moved toward the supply tent, the shade felt like a gift. The supply corporal didn't look up right away. Need match grade .300 for the day, she said. We're dry, he answered, still writing. Then he looked up. At least for you. Priority ammo's already assigned to the platoon lanes. The laugh came from outside the tent, not from him. Ethan leaned against the post with two others, all elbows and teeth. You could always throw rocks, he said. Sarah didn't blink. Roger that, she said. She turned, stepped back into the sun, and let the moment pass. Anger wastes oxygen. She had learned that a long time ago. On the firing berm the wind picked up, not much, but enough to flutter the thin cloth of the range flag. She crouched and ran 2 fingers through the sand. Dry. Fine. Light enough to lift, heavy enough to stick. When she stood, she drifted toward the edge of the line where brass lay scattered in dull gold arcs. She knelt again and started sorting without ceremony. Dented casings in one pocket, clean mouths in another. A few Marines watched, waiting for her to look uncomfortable. She didn't give them that. Lucas walked over. You planning to teach a recycling class? I'm planning to shoot, Sarah said. He held her eyes a beat, then shrugged. Brief in 5. She spent those minutes walking the perimeter, maintenance shed, tool racks, the press bolted to a scarred bench that looked like it had seen 20 years of fixes and favors. The place smelled like powder residue and solvent. She made a quick mental inventory. Decapping die. Primer feed. Powder measure. A scale that wasn't pretty but would do. Not ideal. Not impossible. The brief started on time. Lucas laid out safety, distances, and sequence. Targets at 600, 800, and 1000. Crosswinds likely by midday. Hydrate, watch your lanes, no stupid games. He didn't look at Sarah when he said that last part, but a few others did. She kept her hands clasped behind her back, eyes on the targets, ears tuned to the cadence of a unit that thought it knew the day's outcome. When he rapped, the line broke into teams. Steel pinged. Voices rose, then settled. Sarah moved to the shed and set her case on the bench. She cleaned the press first. Wiped grit. Checked the RAM. Zeroed the scale twice. She sorted brass again, tossing anything that would lie to her later, keeping what could be trusted. Someone paused in the doorway. You really going to load from range trash? Ethan again. His tone carried the easy confidence of someone who hadn't been blooded by consequences yet. Sarah kept working. Only need a few that tell the truth. That right? Truth's rare, she said. But it's enough. He snorted and left. She primed cases with steady hands, feeling each seat, rejecting anything that didn't land firm. She trickled powder to weight, no rush, no flex, no guesswork. Bullets seated to depth with her measure marks checked and rechecked. Every step quieted the noise outside. Every step closed the door on excuses. The shed's fan ticked as it swung. Sweat tracked dust down her temple. She didn't wipe it away. By late afternoon the light went soft and the heat turned bearable. Lucas stepped into the doorway and watched without comment. He knew tools. He knew what it meant to go slow in a world that demanded fast. After a minute he tapped the frame and left. No approval. No block. Just space. She built 24. Not more. Not less. Enough to prove a point to herself first, to anyone else second. She laid them out on a clean rag and rolled each between finger and thumb, checking for runout, for the faint hitch that signals a lie. The rag came away with a thin line of brass dust. Good enough. At dusk the range went quiet except for a few late shots and a generator coughing somewhere near the barracks. The sky burned orange, then red. She walked back to the line and lay prone without a rifle, just to feel the ground and the angle. She counted her breaths and marked the mirage drift against the target posts. She thought about nothing that wasn't part of the shot. She let the day's voices fall away. When full dark came, she stowed the rounds in a reinforced box and locked the bench. The barracks hummed with small talk. Rumor does its own walking. She moved through it like water around a stone. In her corner she stripped the rifle down, cleaned, checked torque, ran a dry patch, set turrets to 0, and closed the case. No speeches. No plans scrawled on walls. Just the kind of work nobody sees. Outside, the wind cooled. Sand hissed against the tent stakes. She stood in the shadow of the floodlight and looked out at the black line where desert meets sky. Tomorrow would be simple. Either the round spoke or they didn't. Either the line listened or it didn't. She didn't need permission for the first and didn't care about the second. Before lights out, she set her alarm, drank water until the canteen was light, and lay back on a cot that complained every time someone breathed. Sleep came in short pieces, but it came. When she woke before the alarm, the sky was still and pale. She sat up, laced her boots, and checked the box again, even though she didn't have to. Every lid closed. Every snap tight. Every doubt already burned off. At the door she paused and listened to the bass waking up. Footsteps. Metal. A laugh. A cough. The world turning like it always does, with or without belief. She picked up the case, lifted the rifle, and stepped into the morning. The day owed her nothing. That was fine. She wasn't here to collect. She was here to deliver, so she walked straight to the long-range line while the sky was still the color of steel and the air hadn't turned brutal yet. Generators coughed awake. The smell of coffee cut through solvent and dust. Lucas stood at lane control with his clipboard, jaw set. He didn't smile, didn't frown. He just watched her set the reinforced box on a clean mat and click the latches like each sound mattered. Ethan drifted over with two buddies, grins ready, eyes bright from too little sleep and too much talk. Targets at 1000 are hot at 0815, Lucas called. Crosswind already flirting with 8 to 10. We'll see what holds. Sarah laid the rifle down and checked 0 one more time, not because she didn't trust herself, but because routine beats nerves every time. The wind flag flicked north to south in a steady beat. Mirage leaned right. She dialed her dope, slid a handmade round from its slot, and felt the primer lip with her thumb. Firm seat. No burrs. She breathed in, out, in, and let the world compress into a line, a reticle, and a plate the size of a man's chest 1,000 yards out. Shooter ready? Lucas asked. Ready, she said. The first shot broke clean. The plate answered with a high, hard ring that cut through the morning. A couple of heads snapped up. Sarah ran the bolt, nudged half a tenth for the gust tugging the flags, and sent number 2. Ping again, close enough to stack on the first. 3, 4, 5 followed like steps you've walked 1,000 times in the dark. The group stayed tight in the center. Hushed wasn't the right word for the line, it was the kind of quiet where people forget to breathe. Ethan's laugh landed late, like it had lost its way. Lucky string, he said, but the grin slipped at the corners. Lucas didn't comment. He looked at the target camera, looked back at Sarah, then drew a small square on his clipboard where a circle should have been. Ramirez, you're up, he said. Same lane, factory rounds. Ethan settled prone, fiddle fast on his scope. He tried to mirror her posture but tensed his shoulders. The first round broke left of center. The second chased it low. He forced the third. It wobbled right. Sarah kept her face neutral, eyes on flags and Mirage. When he rolled to a knee, cheeks red, she said nothing. She wasn't here to gloat. Lucas called a pause for safety and water. Marines drifted in small knots. Some stole looks at the little row of brass on Sarah's mat. One of the older shooters nodded once, not at her, but at the work. It was the only kind of nod that counts. Those handloads, Ethan said, half a challenge, half a question. You think that's the edge? They don't save bad habits, she said. But they don't add lies. He blinked. What? Bad data makes you chase ghosts, she said. Start by cutting the noise. Lucas cleared the line again. Second string, same distance. Variable gusts. Adjust. Sarah waited for the wind to show its pattern. It didn't settle, so she bracketed it. She broke the next 5 with small holds instead of dials, letting the crosshairs float where the gust would shove them. 5 more center pings. Not perfect, not magic, just honest. This time nobody laughed. A few Marines checked their turret marks like the numbers might apologize. Sarah stepped back and peeled a glove to feel the heat soaking the rifle. She drank slow. She didn't talk. The silence did more work than words ever could. Word moves faster than trucks on a base. By mid-morning an officer's shadow appeared near the bleachers, arms crossed, eyes taking notes his pen didn't. Marcus Hensley didn't introduce himself, didn't interrupt. Lucas gave him a tight nod and shifted the order of fire like a man who knows when the room just got heavier. Demonstration at 6, 8, and 1,000, Lucas said. Winds building. Make it clean. Sarah lay back down. 600 felt like a handshake after 1,000. She walked a string across plates to show holds, not tricks. 800 needed real respect. Flags fought each other and Mirage split at mid-range. She waited out 2 gusts, then sent 3 to print in a hand's width. Back at 1,000 she took longer between breaths, trusting the timing more than the math. Each plate answered like a metronome. Marcus moved closer to the spotting scope. He didn't speak, but he didn't blink either. When Sarah cleared and safed, he looked to Lucas, then to the line. Run the Marines, he said, voice calm, not loud. Same conditions. They tried. Some shots bit center, most chased edges. Sarah watched hands, elbows, trigger walls being slapped instead of pressed. She leaned toward Ethan without looking at him. Relax your support hand. Don't steer. Let the bag do the work. He adjusted. The next round cut his group in half. He didn't cheer. He looked shocked that listening mattered. Again, she said. He fired. Better. Not great. Better. Lucas called time and rotated pairs. Marcus finally spoke to Sarah. Your ammunition. Built last night in the shed, she said. With range brass. His tone didn't doubt, it simply weighed. Brass that told the truth, she said. He nodded once and stepped back. No praise. No pushback. Just the acknowledgement of a fact in a place that only respects facts. By noon the heat came hard. Mirage danced high, flags snapped, and dust got into places dust shouldn't. Sarah packed the spent cases into a zip bag, lined the live rounds she had left, and lay down for one last string. The line waited. She didn't speed up for their attention. She slowed down for the wind. Send it when you own it, Lucas said from somewhere behind her. She owned it. The plate sang. Then sang again. Then again. When she stood, Ethan didn't have a joke. He had a question he kept in his eyes, how? She didn't answer it out loud. She just tapped the wind flag, then his chest, then the rifle. He got it. Or he would, if he wanted to. Lunch was a paper tray in the shade of a Konex box. Somebody said her name. Somebody else said, seal. A third said nothing, just stared at his hands like they were new tools. Across the lot, Marcus spoke low to Lucas, and Lucas listened like he was being given a task he already wanted. The afternoon would bring something sharper. Formal eyes. Harder drills. Less room for excuses. Sarah wiped dust from her cheek with the back of her wrist and checked the box again. Fewer rounds now. Enough. She looked up the lane, past the glare, to the far steel that never lies. The day had shifted. Not finished. Just turning toward the kind of work that changes what people believe they can do. She rolled her shoulders once and headed back to the line as the afternoon drill shifted from casual strings to timed relays with tighter standards. Lucas posted the rundown on a whiteboard, staggered plates at 6, 8, and 1,000, 30 seconds per transition, wind calls by the shooter, not the spotter. Marcus stood back with his arms folded, neutral, waiting for data, not stories. The heat pressed in and the mirage boiled higher off the sand. Nobody joked now. Sarah took her lane. The rule was simple, if you missed, you owned the correction before sending the next. She watched the flags wrong foot each other, low left rolling to high right, a messy cross that would push bullets off if you pretended it was steady. She braced the bipod, checked bag height, and settled. At the buzzer she broke 3 at 600, 2 at 8, 1 at 1,000, each with a half-breath pause and a small hold that tracked the gust she felt on her cheek. Pings stacked into a rhythm. When the horn cut, she cleared, safed, and rolled to a knee. Clean, Lucas said, not loud. He marked the board. Ethan slid in next. He fought the clock, rushed the mount, and yanked his third shot. He muttered and tried to claw the group back with a crank on the turret. Sarah leaned near enough for him to hear. Don't chase with the knob. Hold for what you feel. Fix your shoulder. Breathe. He did, and the next plate answered center-left, then center. He exhaled hard through his teeth. The timer screamed anyway. Out of time. The relay cycled. A gust shoved dust across the deck. Targets ghosted. A junior Marine slapped his trigger and threw 2 in the dirt. He looked at his rifle like it had lied to him. Sarah kept her tone flat. You're steering with your support hand. Let the rear bag carry the rifle. Press straight back. Don't talk to it with your fingers. Marcus glanced over. Not approval. Just taking inventory of who could fix themselves and who needed a map. Lucas raised the bar, same drill, but reverse order and no spotter video. You had to trust your call. Sarah waited out a twitch in the flag, then ran the string again. At 800 the Mirage split mid-lane and made the plate look like it had slid left. She didn't buy the picture. She trusted the wind on her neck, held right a hair, and heard steel answer honest. When the timer died, she stepped off, hands steady. "Show me the ammo," Marcus said. She opened the box. Brass in a neat row, primers seated flush, mouth crimps even. He turned one under the light, measured with his eyes, and set it back without a word. Then he nodded at Lucas. "Run them standard issue next pass." Some shoulders tightened. Ethan swallowed. Sarah didn't argue. Factory loads had tells, but tells are just more data if you listen. The horn blasted. She broke the first and felt the difference in recoil and speed. She didn't fight it. She adjusted her hold a quarter plate into the wind, left the turrets alone, and let the second and third stack. The 1000 was unforgiving, the gust kicked mid-flight. She waited an extra second, counted in her head, then sent it. Ring. The line breathed again. Not everyone kept up. A staff sergeant insisted on dialing every gust, chasing numbers while the wind changed again. He lost the rhythm and started missing by the same error. Sarah crouched near his elbow. "Stop spinning. You're late to every change. Float the crosshair where the wind's taking it right now. Then press." He grunted, tried it, and hit. Tried again, hit closer. He didn't look at her, but his shoulders dropped an inch. Sometimes that's the thanks you actually want. Lucas set the capstone, failing light, quartering wind, and a blind call from off the gun. You had to step back, red flags, red mirage, give your solution out loud, and then prove it. Ethan went first, voice shaky. 1000. Hold point 3 right. Elevation stays. He sent it and clipped the edge. He flinched. Sarah shook her head once. "You felt more wind than you said. Call what you feel, not what you hope." When it was her turn, she stood behind the line and let the scene settle in her body. Low flag lazy, high flag twitchy, ground wind pushing dust sideways. Mirage leaning, not hard. 1000.4 right. Send it on the low. She dropped, built her position, waited out a gust, and pressed. The plate answered center. No celebration. Just a fact. Marcus finally stepped closer. "You teach by proof," he said. "Fine. Last evolution, team fire. Your calls, their rifles." That drew a few looks. Sarah didn't hesitate. She walked the line, set small things right, bag height, shoulder pocket, cheek weld, and gave Ethan the first call. Point 2 right, hold high edge. Break smooth. He hit. She nudged a private's elbow, corrected Lucas's rear bag squeeze without making a show of it, and kept the cadence steady. When someone missed, she owned the error in the next call and fixed it without blame. Plates sang in a staggered rhythm that started to sound like a group learning the same language. The sun bled down toward the ridge, dulling the glare. Sweat dried to dust. Guns cooled. Lucas capped the session with a slow walk down the board, pen ticking boxes. He didn't hand out praise. He didn't have to. The numbers said what needed saying. Tomorrow, he told the group, command will be on glass from first light. Same conditions or worse. Bring your best. They broke the line. Ethan lingered by Sarah's mat, eyes still asking. She pointed at the wind flag, then at her chest again. "You call what's real," she said. "Not what you want. Put that in your hands." He nodded, small, like he wasn't ready to trust the idea but wanted to. Across the range, Marcus spoke briefly into a radio and looked back once, measuring her in the quiet way men do when they're deciding where to put their faith. Sarah packed the box, slid the last 2 handloads into their slots, and closed the latches. The desert kept its own counsel as night stepped in. Tomorrow would be sharper, faster, and public. She picked up the rifle and walked toward the shed. Already stripping the day down to what would matter at dawn was simple, and she treated it that way: clean rifle, clear dope, calm mind. The shed lights buzzed when she cracked the case. She ran a patch, checked torque, re-zeroed her turrets to the hard stops she trusted. 2 handloads left, lined like coins you don't spend unless you must. Outside, the bass murmured into silence, then into the thin noises that live between midnight and morning. She slept short and hard. First light came pale and honest. Command glass went up behind the bleachers, tripods like thin-legged birds. Marcus stood there with 2 other officers and an instructor who wore skepticism like a uniform. Lucas worked the line quiet, posted the program, a tiered array, small steel at 700, 900, and 1100, with partial obscures, angled plates, and a crosswind that would slap lies into anyone who wanted an easy story. Team fire under time, individual strings under observation, no spotter feed, calls spoken before the shot. No second chances on the clock. Sarah walked the dirt like a surveyor. Flags told different truths at different heights. Mirage bent left near the deck, right in the middle, and went flat high, classic shear that would wreck a lazy hold. She ran the numbers once in her head, then let the numbers go. This was about reading the room and owning the press. Lucas lifted his chin. "We're hot. Whitfield, you're up first for the individual standard." She set her mat, built the position, and breathed the way she always did, slow in, slower out, a count that lived in her ribs. 700, hold point 1 left, she said for the board. Trigger wall, break, ring. 900, point 3 right, half value. Break, ring higher and thinner. A gust walked the flags out of sync. She waited 1 heartbeat, then another. 1100, point 6 right, favor high. She pressed when the mirage softened. The plate answered, not loud, but certain. Marcus shifted closer to the glass. The instructor beside him wrote something and didn't look up. Sarah safed, cleared, and stepped back. She didn't search faces. Data had already spoken. Lucas turned to the group. Team event. Calls by Whitfield, shots by the line. We're running staggered. Miss, correct, send. He pointed Ethan to lane 3. The younger Marine swallowed and set his cheek welled like he was afraid to breathe wrong. Sarah didn't make a speech. Watch the low flag, she said, small, for the lane. It lies first. She called Ethan's first hold and timing. He broke it clean and nicked high right. Same wind, fix elevation, she said, and he did. Center. She moved 2 lanes down, squared a private's shoulders, and called a wind that didn't look like much if you only watched the nearest cloth. The private sent it and hit. Across the line, the rhythm took shape: call, break, ping, call, break, adjust, ping. When someone missed, she lifted her finger a hair right or left, simple as a compass correction. The instructor finally spoke. Have her run factory through the worst of it. Lucas didn't argue. Next rotation, standard issue. Factory rounds hit like a different language. Sarah felt the change and trimmed her calls a 10th here, a 10th there. She walked Ethan through a bad gust by making him wait 2 breaths past what his nerves could stand. He did, and the plate honored it. Another Marine wanted to dial through the gusts, she cut him off. Holds only. Your dial can't chase wind that fast. He obeyed, and the group tightened. Marcus stepped forward, voice steady. Final evolution. Progressive ladder at 9, 1, and back to 7. 30 seconds per position. You will announce your call before you send. Whitfield will run the last string, handloads or factory, her choice. The line buzzed softly, the kind of sound men make when the room just got real. Sarah didn't look at her 2 leftover rounds. Not yet. She moved lane to lane as the Marines ran the ladder. Misses came early, then fewer. Ethan stumbled at 1,000, looked like he wanted to apologize, then shoved it down and fixed the next shot with the hold she'd been drilling into his bones since yesterday. He hit and didn't smile. Good. Lucas reset the board. Whitfield. She lay down as the wind stiffened. Dust lifted at ankle height, then dropped. Flags twitched disagreeably. The plate at 900 shimmered away from itself and back again. She gave her call. 900, point 2 right, favor low. She sent and heard the plate ring soft, edge but honest. She fixed elevation half a line and printed center. 1,000, point 5 right, break on the settle. Amin Gus tried to show off. She waited it out and pressed when the Mirage sighed. Center. Time dripped. She glanced at the 2 handloads. Factory would do. Pride wastes shots. She stayed on issue rounds and walked the gun back to 700, 0 wind on the lull. She counted. 1, 2, press. Ring like a bell close to hand. She safed, cleared, and lifted her head. Marcus lowered his Beano. The instructor closed his notebook. Lucas read the board. Numbers didn't brag, but they didn't apologize either. He looked at Sarah, then at the Marines, then at command. You have your data, sir, he said. Marcus nodded once. I do. He addressed the line without raising his voice. You saw a demonstration of control under variables. That is marksmanship. Equipment matters, discipline decides. You'll take what you learned yesterday and today and make it standard. He turned back to Sarah. How many did you build last night? 24, she said. How many left? 2. Use them. She understood. Not a parlor trick, an end cap. Proof under a microscope. She slid one handload into the chamber and felt the difference like a familiar handshake. 1,000, point 4 right, she called, then broke it clean. The ring came back brighter, the group sharpening to a dot on the screen. She ran the last one at 1,100 for the worst of the wind. Point 7 right. Wait for the drop. She waited, pressed, and the plate sang. Small smiles showed up in places where men don't usually show them. Ethan exhaled through a laugh he couldn't stop. Lucas didn't smile, but he didn't hide the way his shoulders let go. The instructor closed the distance, looked at the brass, looked at the board, then at Sarah. No mystique, he said. Just craft. Just craft, she said. Command broke down slowly, like they didn't want to admit they were done. Marcus shook Lucas's hand, then offered Sarah a nod that carried weight. Document this, he told Lucas. Add it to the rotation. Not as an anecdote. As a standard. The line loosened. Marines talked like men who just learned a language they could finally use. Ethan hovered, then lifted his rifle, then lowered it, then finally asked, Tomorrow? Tomorrow is the same, Sarah said. Wind won't care who you are. Neither will steel. He nodded with the seriousness of someone who finally understood simple things are the hardest to do on purpose. The sun climbed, the edge went off the air, and the range smelled like hot metal and dust again. Sarah packed the empty box. No handloads left. Didn't matter. The point had landed. She slung the rifle and walked past the bleachers where the tripods were coming down and the whisper of new expectations was louder than any applause. She didn't need the noise. She needed the work, and the work would be waiting the minute the desert decided to test them again, so she built the morning like a checklist that never lied. Lucas posted a pared-down program for consolidation, fewer tricks, more fundamentals. Marcus stayed off the glass, standing farther back like a man who wanted to see if the lesson held when no one felt watched. The wind came steady from the right, not kind, not cruel, just steady enough to prove whether yesterday sunk in. Sarah started at the shed before most boots hit gravel. No handloads left, so she cleaned brass from her spent bag, wiped carbon, and checked case mouths out of habit. She wasn't loading today, she was centering herself. She wiped her bolt lugs, dabbed a drop of oil, and seated the bolt with the quiet click she liked. When she stepped onto the line, Ethan was already there, posture better, eyes less jumpy. He didn't crack a joke. He nodded once and checked his bag height without being told. Warm up at 6, confirm at 8, standard at 1, Lucas called. Holds, not dials, unless you've got a reason. Sarah didn't take lane 1. She took the space behind Ethan, arms folded, eyes on flags. Call it, she said. Point 2 right, he said. He breathed, pressed, hit. He didn't look back for approval. He made the next call alone. He missed left a hair, corrected hold instead of twisting a turret, and hit center. He exhaled and reset his shoulder pocket like a routine he owned. Across the line, 2 other Marines started mirroring the same habit, hands lighter on the stock, pressure straight back, small adjustments where they belonged. Targets began to answer like they understood. The range felt different. Not quiet because of doubt, but quiet because people were working. A private who had slapped his trigger yesterday now paused half a beat on the wall and broke clean. His group tightened. Another adjusted his rear bag instead of muscling the rifle, and the scope picture stopped swimming. Sarah moved among them without fanfare, tapping a forearm here, nudging a cheek weld there, saying less and letting the pings carry most of the talk. When Lucas rotated to 1000, the wind ticked up a notch, the kind of change that tempts you to chase numbers. Sarah caught Ethan's eye and touched 2 fingers to the flag, then her jawline where the breeze touched skin. He nodded. Point 5 right, he said, but he waited for the lull, then pressed. Center. He let the bolt ride slow, as if to prove to himself the first wasn't a fluke. The second landed just off center. He didn't grimace. He added a tenth of hold and put the third back where it needed to be. Marcus walked the back of the line, hands behind his back, face neutral. He wasn't collecting a show now. He was seeing if the unit had changed its shape. He stopped when a staff sergeant who had spun dials yesterday started to steer again out of habit. Before Sarah could speak, Ethan whispered, "Holds only, Sarge. You'll be late." The sergeant hesitated, then settled, held right a quarter plate, and got paid by the steal. He grunted a thanks he didn't want to say out loud. Lucas added a drill nobody wanted the first time, blind calls. Shooters step off the gun, read wind and mirage, give the hold and elevation, then hand the rifle to the next Marine to execute. No arguing with the call once it's given. If the call is wrong, you fix it on the next call, not with your hands. It forces trust, and it punishes pride. Ethan went first. 1000.4 right, on the settle. The next Marine pressed early and cut edge. Sarah didn't flinch. "Your call was fine," she said. "Your timing wasn't." The Marine nodded and waited one breath longer on the follow-up. Center. Sarah kept score on a notepad, not for show, but to hand Lucas something better than feelings. Between strings she pulled a pair to the side and rebuilt their prone from the ground up. "If your elbow floats, your reticle swims," she said. "Stack bone, not muscle. Muscle quits." They did it. The wobble band shrank. Pings came on command. By late morning, patterns emerged. Fewer wild corrections. Fewer hands wrenching knobs. More measured calls that matched what the flags and mirage said. Marcus drifted to the maintenance shed and looked over the old press without touching it, like a man considering the origin of a story he'd already verified. When he returned to the line, he didn't offer speeches. He pointed at the board where Lucas had started tallying hit percentages and group sizes. Numbers told a cleaner story than rumor ever could. Consolidation phase, Lucas announced. 3-man teams. 1 calls, 1 shoots, 1 spots with no video. Rotate every 5 rounds. If you talk, say the part that matters. Sarah took a team with Ethan and the private who'd slapped triggers yesterday. She made Ethan call first. He watched the flags at 2 heights and the dust trails at ankle level, then gave a hold that lived in the middle of those truths. The private pressed clean and hit. They rotated. When it was Sarah's turn on the gun, she used the call she was given without adjusting it from habit. The shot clipped right edge. My fault, Ethan said quickly. Should have added a 10th. Sarah shook her head. No. Call was honest. Gust was late. Next call is yours. He breathed, read again, and added the 10th. The plate paid full. Through it all, Sarah kept the tone flat, the words short, the correction specific. Relax your grip. Add point 1. Wait it out. Send. No sermons. No heat. Results stacked. Near noon, Lucas brought a small printer to the table and started spitting out groups from the target cams for the few drills where cams were on. He laid yesterday's scatter against today's clusters. Marines came by in 1s and 2s, said nothing, and nodded to themselves. It's one thing to feel you've improved. It's another to see it in black and white. Marcus glanced at the sheets, then at Sarah. No smile. Just that small shift in posture people make when they move from unsure to sure. They did one more evolution under time, then Lucas called water and shade. In the lull, Ethan found Sarah at the edge of the shed, where the air was a few degrees kinder. He held out a notebook, dog-eared, lines filled with holds, wins, mistakes, fixes. I wrote it down, he said, almost embarrassed. So I don't lie to myself tomorrow. She scanned the pages. They weren't pretty. They were honest. Good, she said. Add this, don't chase a change that already passed. If you're late, you wait. He scribbled it exactly like she said it, then looked up. I thought you were going to rub our faces in it yesterday. Waste of time, she said. I want you to hit steel, not hate me. He huffed a short laugh. Fair. When the line went hot again, Sarah pulled back even more. She made herself unnecessary on purpose. She let 2 corporals run micro-corrections without stepping in unless safety or stupidity threatened. Both handled it. Calls stayed firm. Hits stayed honest. The desert didn't soften, but the Marines stopped treating it like an enemy that had to be bullied. They treated it like a set of facts to respect. In the last hour, Lucas ran a quiet assessment. No fanfare. Shoot the ladder. Call your wind. Fix one mistake without spiraling. Ethan ran it clean. The private who had struggled kept 1 miss from becoming 5. The staff sergeant didn't touch his turrets once. When Lucas posted the numbers, nobody cheered. They didn't need to. The board showed fewer misses, tighter clusters, and times that didn't bleed into panic. Marcus finally stepped in and spoke to the group like a range bell. What you saw yesterday was a peak. Today proves whether it was a fluke. It wasn't. You are now responsible for not sliding back. He looked at Sarah. We'll write this into the rotation. Not optional. Lucas added, tomorrow the conditions change. Up-angle targets, partial obscures, and some stress. Same rules. Sarah packed her case slow. The work had shifted from fighting disbelief to guarding gains. That's the part nobody puts on a poster. It's the part that matters. Ethan lingered again, then stopped himself and went to help a junior Marine rebuild his prone without being asked. Sarah watched him, then looked out past the targets to the thin blue line of distance where the mirage sagged and lifted like breath. The desert had tested them yesterday by embarrassment and today by discipline. It would test them again by fatigue, by boredom, by the pressure to cut corners when no one watched. She tightened one strap on her case and felt the familiar weight settle into her hand. Work remained. But the line had changed shape, and the change looked like it might hold if they kept choosing the simple, hard thing on purpose. She stepped off the gravel into the shade of the shed for a moment, cooled her neck with the back of her wrist, and listened to the soft clatter of rifles being cleared. The noise she didn't need was gone. What stayed sounded a lot like a unit that knew what it was doing and why it planned to keep doing it. Morning proved it. No speeches, no pumps. Just rifles getting checked, bags set right, flags read like a checklist. Lucas posted a simple final: confirm at mid-range, run a mixed-angle lane, finish with a quiet ladder where every shooter called and owned his wind. Marcus watched from the back without glass, arms folded, like a man who didn't need magnification to see what changed. Sarah moved slower on purpose. She didn't jump in every time a hand twitched. She let the small fixes come from the line. Ethan corrected a private's shoulder pocket without raising his voice. A staff sergeant who had once spun his turrets now held for the wind and waited through 2 gusts before sending. Steel paid, center. Nobody hooped. They nodded and kept working. The sun climbed and flattened the color out of the range. Heat shimmered above the sand but didn't pull eyes off the plates. Lucas rotated teams through the angled rack. Up-angle messes with elevation and the way your body stacks behind the gun, down-angle tricks your sight picture and makes you chase a miss if you don't trust your call. Sarah demonstrated once, then stepped aside. Ethan ran it clean, then missed by a hair when he rushed the second position. He didn't mutter, didn't pound the stock. He breathed, added a 10th, and fixed it. That told more truth than a perfect string. Final ladder, Lucas said. No timer. You'll set your own pace. We're checking if you can be honest with yourselves without a horn yelling at you. Sarah took the end of the line and let the others go first. The private who had slapped triggers on day 1 called his wind out loud so his hands wouldn't lie. He missed left, then waited out a gust and hit middle. The staff sergeant held instead of dialing and stacked 2 good ones at 1,000. Ethan trembled a little before his first shot, then shook it loose with a slow exhale. .4 right, he said, and the plate answered like a yes he'd earned. When it was Sarah's turn, she didn't try to write a legend. She chose factory rounds like everyone else and called her wind where the flags and dust agreed. 900, center. 1,000, slight edge, then correction to center. 700, no hold on the lull. 3 clean pings. She cleared the rifle, locked the bolt, and stepped back. Marcus finally spoke, voice even. You just watched yourselves change. He didn't point at Sarah. He pointed at the line. That's the only change that matters. He turned to Lucas. Keep this in your rotation. Quarterly. No exceptions. Lucas wrote it on the board like it had been true all along. Copy. Shade was thin under the Konex, but it felt earned. Trays came out. Bottles clinked. The talk was small and practical, holds that worked, angles that made someone rush, the way Mirage lied near the ground at 800 when the wind sheer kicked. Ethan slid onto the crate across from Sarah and set a little notebook on his knee. I stopped pretending the wind would be kind, he said. It helped. Wind doesn't care, she said. You care. That's the difference. He thumbed a page. You leaving today? Soon, she said. Other ranges. Other work. He nodded like he'd guessed it. I thought I'd hate you when you hammered us on day 2, he said. Turns out I just hated being wrong. Being wrong is cheap, she said. Staying wrong costs. He smiled at that and shut the notebook. I'll keep the holds honest. Do that, she said. When Chow wrapped, Sarah walked one more loop. Maintenance shed. Press on the bench, wipe down, quiet. She closed a drawer that had been left half open and set a stray decapping pin back in its tray. On the line, 2 corporals were rebuilding a junior Marines prone without waiting for permission. Stack bone, not muscle, one said, almost the same words she'd used. The kid listened and hit center at 6. Good. That's how it should work when you leave a place better than you found it. Marcus intercepted her near the bleachers. He didn't try to pin a speech on the moment. You gave them a method, he said. Not a trick. That travels. That was the point, she said. He extended a hand. You've got an open lane here whenever you want it. She shook once. If the schedule lines up. He stepped back, satisfied. No plaque. No photo. Just a door that would stay unlocked. Lucas came last, clipboard under his arm, pencil tucked behind his ear. Numbers are good, he said. Not cute good. Real good. He didn't thank her, not out loud. He didn't need to. He tilted his head toward the board where yesterday's groups sat ugly next to today's tight clusters. That was thanks enough. Sarah hit the armory, signed her rifle back into travel status, checked the serial against the card, and closed the case. Outside, Ethan jogged up with a small plastic bag. Spent brass, polished, mouths checked. In case you ever need to load on a bad day, he said. She took it. There are no bad days, she said. Just days that tell the truth quicker. He laughed once, then squared his shoulders like the line had taught him how to stand in his own skin. Fair. At the Humvee, the desert pushed a warm breeze across the gravel. The range was already sliding back into its usual rhythm, voices low, steel cooling, dust settling into whichever footprints were left. Sarah set the brass in her pack, lifted the case, and paused long enough to take one last read of the flags out of nothing but habit. Low flag lazy. High flag honest. Mirage soft. If she'd been staying, she would have called .2 right at 1,000 and told Ethan to wait for the settle. He didn't need her voice for it anymore. She climbed in and shut the door. The engine coughed, caught, and leveled. Through the windshield the plates sat where they always sit, indifferent, patient, exact. That's the job. The steel never lies. The wind never apologizes. The work never subtracts itself just because yesterday went well. On the way out, she passed the maintenance shed again and saw the door propped open. The press on the bench looked like every old tool that keeps a unit honest, nothing fancy, just square and stubborn. She thought about the first night, sorting range trash into something that spoke clearly. Not magic. Craft. Do the simple thing right, over and over, until the results stop surprising you. The gate rolled by. The desert opened up. Sky, heat, line. She let the quiet sit. No need to replay shots. No need to rewrite what had already printed itself in numbers and muscle memory. She had given them something they could use when nobody watched. They had taken it because they finally wanted the responsibility more than the excuse. The road turned to blacktop. The engine hummed. Far behind, steel would keep singing when the holds were honest and keep punishing when they weren't. That was comfort, not pressure. It meant the lesson didn't belong to her. It belonged to anyone willing to put in the work, read the wind, and press the trigger without lying to himself. She drove on, sun angling across the hood, case steady on the seat beside her. The day owed her nothing, same as always. She left with exactly what she came for, proof that craft beats talk, that discipline beats noise, and that respect, earned clean, travels farther than rumor. At the last rise before the range dipped out of sight, she checked the mirror once and saw flags barely moving, like the desert was taking a breath and holding it. Then the road dropped, the base slipped behind, and the work moved forward with her, quiet and ready for whatever plate waited next.